Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining the Environmental Justice Practitioners Network webinar here in April 2019. We're honored and really grateful to Freddie Lane with the Lummi Nation for taking some time out of his day to join us. And also to Deb Cruz for all of her amazing organizing to make this possible. So I will pass it over to Deb and Freddie to introduce a little more about themselves and talk about all the great work going on with the Lummi Nation right now.
So I'm gonna let Freddie go ahead and do his speaking so he can meet his obligations that are happening later on tonight. So Freddie Lane is a tribal council member with Lummi Nation, and we're gonna, I guess, talk back and forth about the canoe journey and the Tokatai totem pole journey and whatever else inspires my friend to speak about. So you're on, Freddie, go for it.
Well, thank you, Deb, and thank everyone that's tuning in. Siamanis Jalacho, Sohila Kwanasanat Tacho, Tiakaya Siam, Sokadab is my Indian name. My government name is Lane. I'm the 11th of 12 children of the late Vernon and Nancy Lane, both of Lummi. I was born and raised here on the Lummi Reservation. Grew up with my father. My father was the past chairman of the Lummi Nation, Vernon Lane. And they were in the big fights back in the day when we were establishing our right to hunt and gather and to fish, what's called the boat decision times. So these days, you know, we talk about our modern day Indian wars, and to talk about tribal journeys first, which is coming up July 24th through the 28th. It's the Paddle to Lummi, and everybody is welcome. Everybody is encouraged to send a delegation. We invite you on behalf of our elders, on behalf of our veterans, on behalf of our tribal council, and all of our nation youth. We are a treaty tribe with the Point Elliott Treaty of 1855. My great granduncle Swokanum signed the treaty on January 22nd, 1855. And so our tribal journeys is about continuing our efforts to protect the Salish Sea, our efforts to continue to protect our way of life. And as many of you know, the salmon are endangered, the orcas are endangered, and of course our waterways, you know, these are our ancestral highways, as our elders have shared with us for millennia. Shisheshwawalek, that's how you say we are survivors of the Great Flood. And so Lummi Nation is hosting a 5-day event. It actually starts July 9th out on the West Coast of, you know, where Ocean Shores, Washington, well, up by the Quinault Nation. They're going to be one of the first ones on the water, paddling up to Queets, up to Quileute, Ho River, up to Quileute, up to Macaw, which we call the beginning of the universe. And then they'll come down the Straits of Juan de Fuca by canoe. And so each village, the canoes will stop in, they'll raise their paddles, they'll come ashore, and the protocol is to ask permission to travel through the territory. And so this is how this was done in ancient times. And today, the potlatch is celebrated throughout the Northwest each year with Canoe Journey. For those of you who don't know much history about the Coast Salish people, we were banned to celebrate the potlatch in the late 1800s and early 1900s by the governments of Canada and the United States. And what the government officials never knew about the potlatch was the importance of it celebrating our Schlangen, our way of life. So as we say, Lummis are giving people. Lummis are people who lead. Lummis are people who speak up and protect the waterways, to protect the orcas. And so when the canoes come, they'll be in the Seattle area. July 18th, and they'll go to Suquamish the 19th and 20th. The mainland on the United States side will be the 19th and 20th in Suquamish, Washington, and then Tulalip on the 21st, Swinomish on the 22nd, Samish Indian tribe and Anacortes on the 23rd. And then the big day is when we're expecting upwards to 20, possibly 25,000 people on our shores. We have vendors, we have arts and crafts vendors, food vendors, and we'll be celebrating the arrivals of all of our relatives coming from. We have our relatives coming from Maori they're not actually paddling from New Zealand, but they're coming over, and they're coming in as a delegation, as an indigenous nation. We have relatives coming from Maui and the Hawaiian people, and they're going to be starting in Nia Bay on July 12th. We have the Lummi Nation does a cultural exchange program with the Woodland Park Zoo in Seattle, Washington. And so with the cultural exchange there, we're actually bringing a delegation of 10 indigenous Papua New Guinea tribes people. And so we're really excited here at Lummi Nation to be hosting upwards to 100,000 people, over the 5 days. We have, so as you can imagine, the canoes traveling and coming through the different territories through the, people have to understand that our even though we're all Coast people, we all don't speak the same language. We all don't have the same songs or the same customs or the same traditions, yet we are all family when we're on the canoe journey. And so every stop as the canoes come in, the host tribe will bring the canoes ashore, and they will feast and they will dance all night long as they're getting ready for the big potlatch here at Lummi Nation on July 24th. We plan on doing a soft landing at 10 a.m. So it's going to be a pretty long day. Not to say that we wouldn't be expecting people on that Monday, but when the canoes, they'll do a soft landing on the south, what is called Portage Island Bridge, and they'll come ashore there. They'll get in the order that from the farthest to the closest. That's how the canoes will come in, and that's how we'll do the cultural exchange over the next 4 days on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So we'll start with the canoe or the family or the indigenous tribe that traveled the farthest. So we'll start with the Papua New Guinea. We'll hand it off to our relatives in the Maori, our Hawaiian relatives, and then we even have a couple of canoes coming from Alaska. They're not actually paddling, but they're going to start in Alki Beach on July 18th. And so, with all of our efforts to host the Paddle to Lummi 2019, we're always looking for volunteers. We're always looking for people to help with the food. We've been with the help of Beth Brownfield and Deb Cruz and all of our friends with the Community Connections Committee. We're on a 87-day countdown. Not to put it too mildly, but we're under 90 days now, so we're getting in preparation mode. Many tribes step forward and have been donating. Some donate cash, some donate fish, some donate elk, some donate halibut and crab. So it's just amazing what Beth and Deb and our Community Connections Committee have been really helping us with as far as working even with the farmers in Whatcom County. It's amazing how Tribal Journey is bridging our communities together. They're helping, they're understanding why our indigenous tribe, why our people are always talking about protecting the waters, always talking about protecting our clam beds, where we all love clam chowder. And so, we're really bridging our communities. Beth and them have farmers that are going to donate potatoes and berries and whatever carrots, whatever fresh fruits and vegetables they can donate. It's amazing to see the community come together, and that's what Tribal Journeys is all about. Our motto is doing everything in happiness and hope and healing and honor and hospitality. And so when we have volunteers come and join our team, when there's 25,000 people on the shore on the 24th, it's an amazing sight. You can YouTube a lot of this and go back to the Paddle to Lummi 2007. I happen to be the director back in the day. I'm a community organizer by trade. My background is in public relations and communications. So not to say that I'm a one-man crew, but a lot of times I'm a one-man crew. I do a lot of videography and have been following the totem pole journeys since 2002 with the House of Choose carvers. And so, not to move right into it, but with the canoe, with the totem pole, Tokatai, that totem pole is sitting in Gainesville. You could look it up. It's at the University of Florida in their Natural History Museum, and they have a beautiful exhibit there where Tokatai, where the totem pole is. And it's as far as environmental justice and standing up. Lummi Nation stood up against SSA Marine, a multi-billion-dollar international corporation. They wanted to put one of the West Coast's biggest coal ports. And Lummi Nation, back in the late in the 2000s and then getting into the teens there, Lummi Nation took a really strong stance. And we stood up and we said, they said, we're not going to disturb your burial grounds. We're not going to disturb Cherry Point and where Cochiacan is. And we just want to put 55,000 tons of coal on it per year, and ship it to China. Well, Lummi Nation stood up and said no. Lummi Nation stood up and said no. We have, our ancestors are not only buried there, but they're buried out in the waters there at Cochiacan. In ancient times, our people used to be buried in the trees and in the ground and in the water. So, as they say, this is holy ground. These are holy seas. These are where our ancestors are buried. And we took a stand. And with the efforts there with Cochiacan, Lummi Nation pushed forward to stand up for those who can't speak for themselves. The salmon have no voice. The orcas, they have no voice. You can look at Tahlequah in carrying her baby for over 1,000 miles. She carried her infant baby that died for all the world to see. And Chief Salik and some of our other elders, they called me over and they told me, this is, so Caleb, you have to understand that this is a sign for the world to see. This is what's going to happen to us next if we don't start taking up social issues and protecting Mother Earth. This is what's going to happen. This is happening to their family. And so Tahlequah and Tokutai and the J-Pod, you know, if you think about it, there are orcas in Antarctica, there are orcas all over the world, in Iceland and in the Arctic. But how we understand and the stories that are taught to us, and they're not just stories, they're actual history of they are our relatives. They are the Quahomachton. They're from the Quahomachton clan. They are the people that live under the water. And so with Lolita, getting back to the totem pole journey we're about to embark on, you can find out more on we have a Facebook page, Our Shared Responsibility, a totem pole journey. And we're going down to Miami to pick up the totem pole and to spiritually bring her back home. We're going to spiritually bring the totem pole back home to take part into our canoe journey. And so with the totem pole journey, we're leaving on May 24th. We're driving, not to say I've driven it, you know, right across to Miami, but that's where we're heading to, with the event starting on May 30th and 31st in Miami. And we come across the Southwest United States through Texas, Louisiana, through New Mexico and Arizona, and then we have events on the west coast of the United States in, I believe it's June 6th and 7th. And we're actually going to go right in front of Palace Entertainment. They own the Miami Seaquarium, where Lolita, where Tokutai is being held captive. And if you don't know the story of Lolita of Tokutai, well, in 1972, by the permission of Washington State, not by the permission of the indigenous people, but by permission, they got a $750 permit from Washington State. And so this is where tribes come in to say, you took those 24 whales without our permission. That's what the tribes are standing for. And she's a 51-year-old female Tokutai, and she was taken out of Penn Cove, Washington. And you could look all this up online. You can find our totem pole journeys and look at the efforts that the tribe has done. And so with Jewel James and the House of Tears Carvers, you know, this dates back to since the World Trade Center, since they fell. And since 9/11, the tribe has been bringing this awareness to the healing that needs to take place in our communities. And Jewel and Uncle Doug James and the House of Tears Carvers have been doing this, just trying to educate our communities, just trying to educate and bring healing and honoring where we come from and honoring the communities that we go through. And so they're really developed into over, I guess, since 2010. We've been standing up for environmental justice issues. We've been standing up to the corporations. You have to remember, corporations are people too. The difference between corporations and you and I is corporations don't have a soul. Corporations don't have a heart. Corporations don't understand what it is to hold hands with a community and say, you are not going to poison our river. You are not going to poison our land. Corporations are the greatest threat to our environment. And they're getting away with everything, as far as, they want to build all these gold mines and harvest up all the fossil fuels. And what do they give back in return? Death and destruction. And so the same thing is happening with our Salish Sea. The same thing is happening with all of our rivers. I don't know how many grandparents and uncles and aunties and mothers and fathers that are out there, but we're doing this for your children's children. So when they look back on us and they say, what did Grandma and Grandpa do? How come they didn't run for public office? How come they didn't stand up and if they could run for county council or city council, or maybe even run for the United States Congress? How come they weren't doing this? How come they were allowing the big business to come in and ruin our drinking water and ruin our land and ruin our sea? Because we're looking out for all the future generations to come. And a lot of our elders believe that our indigenous people around the world, you see them doing these. Look at what's happening in Brazil. Look at what's happening down in Australia. And so there's this great movement in indigenous people. We don't know where the fight is coming from, but we remember the words that were taught to us, that we're not doing this for us. We're recognizing that we're going to be neighbors. We're going to be friends. We're going to, live in this beautiful land together. And we can't do this alone. And so with the totem pole journey, the Tokutai totem pole coming home, that's what we're going to do with a stop in LA. We're going to go before the city council. We're going to let them know how much fossil fuel and coal comes right through their port, the port of Los Angeles. We're going to let them know. We're going to let Palace Entertainment know. Their headquarters are near San Diego, there in LA, and let them know that we want Lolita back. We want her home with her mother. Her mother still lives. Her grandmother still lives. Her aunties and her uncles still remember her, and that she's still she has not left a thought. She has not left the thought in their heart that she was stolen. She was abducted like our children were abducted back in ancient times, taking them off to boarding schools. And so we're breaking the chain. You see how different countries around the world, different states are banning the dolphins and orcas being held in captivity. And we know that it's an uphill battle. We know that we can't do these things alone. But the important things to understand is that we're still trying to do this together. And I just applaud anyone that can take the stand. How do we make things right? How do we go forward in remembering that what we do to the water and the air and the land, we do to ourselves, we do to the future generations. And so getting back to our ancestral highways, getting back to where the Coahomictan people live under the water, what we call the Salish Sea. We understand our relationship to all that provides us nourishment. We don't think about this. I once heard one of my Holonitam friends ask me, "Why do you Indians always pray? Why you guys always pray for your food, and you pray for your blessing and pray for the safety of people?" And I just kind of I thought it insulting, but it was an educational moment. And I once heard Joel James say this on one of our totem pole journeys. He says, "Think about this when you eat a meal the next time. Something has sacrificed its life for you today. Something whether it be a plant or a herb, whether it be a creature that roams the mountain, or we don't even think about the hamburger that we eat, and the pickle and the wheat that's sacrificed. He says, think about that. That's why we're praying to our meal, because it's providing nourishment. So that's what's happening in the Salish Sea. We're losing our connection with the salmon. Our salmon are no longer coming back home. Our orcas are dying. Our seas are dying. Our rivers are dying. And so this is that part of that, we're the first generation, you and I, we're the first generation to recognize global climate change. And we're the last generation that can do something about it. And so that's what our chairman, that's what my nephew, Chairman Watatlam, Chairman Jay Julius, I heard him say that one day. And if you know Jay Inslee, you can hear some of his speeches. You can hear him adopt that same speech from what our Lummi chairman said a few years back. We're the first generation to recognize what's happening to our world, and if we don't do something, we're the last generation that can do something. And so with that, I don't want to say that I could keep talking about it, but I can. But in the 13 minutes, I think it was, that I shared, I really appreciate the help, again, an invitation to each and every one of you that's listening. If you've never witnessed canoe journey, my first canoe journey was 2003. And Uncle Smitty, he was in charge of the cultural department. And I was working in communications. He says, "Hey, Neff, I need you to come help me host these canoes. There's 7 canoes coming to Lummi." And I said, "Okay, when?" He said, "Tomorrow." And I was like, "Okay." And so I organized a meal, and we had the sound system, and just a handful of us came together, and the canoes came through, and they said, "Are you guys coming to us on the paddle to Tulalip?" And so we jumped in our canoe and jumped in our trucks and jumped in our canoe and we went traveling on the canoe journey. And that was probably the greatest. It was like this cultural awakening, and it was so beautiful to witness our full circle, the canoes coming back to Lummi. And that's the power of our movements that we're doing, our social movements that we're doing around the world, really. If you think about what we're trying to do and to save, our ancestral highways. And that tribal journey, I always call it the tribal journey, because you'll start going every year. You'll start next year traveling. Actually, in August, there's a paddle to Alcatraz. I don't know how many of you. I went to school in the Bay Area, and it's more of a political statement down there with the paddle to Alcatraz. But nonetheless, it's going to be a beautiful return of the canoes to the Bay Area. And so that's August, I believe, 8th through the 19th. You can find everything at paddletolummi.org. And that's PADDLE 2TO, and Lummi is LUMMI.org. And then with the paddle to Alcatraz, they have, I believe it's paddletoalcatraz.com. I could be mistaken. But with canoe journey, with the totem pole journey, if we're going to come through your territory, if we're going to come through your city, please feel free to Beth and Deb Cruz. You can find me at the Lummi Nation at the Tribal Center. The phone number there is 360-312-2000. That's 360-312-2000. And that'll get you right to the tribe there. We have lots of events coming up. We have a first salmon ceremony on May 16th. It's a Thursday. It starts at 10 o'clock at Lummi Nation School. If you're in the area, give us a call. Come down and witness. We have our annual Spanish Water Festival, and that's June 21st, I think, 21st through the 24th, that weekend, 2019. And that event is free. It's open to the public. If you come to Canoe Journey, just be prepared to camp for 5 days. You know, bring your chair, bring your cooler. It's an alcohol and drug-free event. That's very important for people to understand that, you know, we do this in a good way, again, with happiness, with healing, with honor, and with hope, and with hospitality. And so we welcome any volunteers. Again, there are people making gifts. We have making gifts on our Facebook page. I believe it's Tribal Canoe Journeys, and there's about 23,000 people on that Facebook page. And there's a blanket project taking place right now where if somebody wanted to give, I believe it's $90. I can't remember if it's $90 or $100. And they're doing this. They're raising blankets for us to give away. It's really amazing. I know Beth probably can explain a little bit more about it, but it's amazing how our friends as far away as Olympia are helping us gather blankets. The tribe has a big giveaway on Sunday, July 28th. That's what they call the potluck. So we'll have a feast. We'll have food. We'll have dancing. You'll witness storytellers and witness the spirit of tribal journeys. And with our totem pole journey, we have an amazing crew. We have amazing work to do, and we can't do all this together. We can't do this all alone. We have to continue to do this together. And I just thank our friends at the Bellingham Unitarian Fellowship for I never knew Beth Brownfield until like spring of 2007. And she introduced me to Deb, and we've been lifelong friends. And I think that's the really most powerful element of life, that most powerful element of the spirit of the potlatch, of the paddle, of traveling our ancestral highways. And that is the most powerful. You know, we need more hope these days. If you look at the rhetoric in Washington, D.C., we need to do, like, I don't even watch the news anymore just because it's so depressing. And it's like the reality show of, you know, our 45th president. So I like to focus on these real important issues of helping communities with their struggles and helping in any way that I can with social justice issues. And so with that, I don't know if I missed anything, Deb, and if anyone has any questions, I do have to jump on the road here in the next 5 minutes.
Freddie,
let's go for questions. Yeah.
One thing that he should know is that Pat Rasmussen is on the line, so he might be able. Oh, he can't see the picture, but Pat, who's in charge of the blanket project, is on the call. Wonderful.
But did I miss anything, Beth? I didn't know it was 5:30. I could talk for I talked for a half hour.
You did good, Freddie.
Well, one,
Okay.
Covered all the points that I was hoping you would cover. I would open it up for questions right now. So since you have to run, open it up for questions, and then Beth and I can fill them in on anything else.
Okay.
Any of the details.
That would be great. Thank you all. I can't see who's all online or listening, but just
Well, you got people
thanking you.
from North Carolina and Minnesota and where else?
Texas.
Texas. So if anybody has any
Oregon.
questions.
Hi, this is Earl Coteam from Berkeley, California, and I apologize for interrupting, but I have to go to my other meeting myself. I just wanted to say thank you so much. I too have concluded that political and economic activism is critical if we're going to acquire environmental justice. So I really appreciate what you said. Thank you.
Yeah.
And with that, I'll check out. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Freddie. You have 28 people on the call with you, and I'm sure everyone really appreciates you doing
Wonderful.
this.
And I will leave my number. Like I said, I will just tell you all this right now. I'm like I said, I'm a community activist. I'm a community leader by trade, and I ran for tribal council in 17. Was planning on losing, but since that I've been doing Native Vote since 1996, and I've ran some campaigns in my time, and I actually won by 14 votes. But yeah, it was I won by 14 votes. It was one of the largest turnouts in tribal history, and so now I'm a politician. So you could believe half of what I just said. No, I'm just kidding. but really, I just really thank each and every one of you from the bottom of our heart, from the bottom of my heart, and from our Lummi Nation community. Come on out to Lummi. Come on out to the paddle. I'll be posting on. We're actually coming through Texas. We're just doing, I think, 2 stops. I can't remember if it's Dallas and El Paso. We're in Berkeley in the Bay Area. We're actually doing like a 2 or 3 day right around June tent there at the University of San Francisco. I don't know the details, but we'll be updating that. And so, should you be able to participate, we hope you do. So, with that, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Freddie.
Freddie.
Have a good day.
Yeah.
Okay.